At some point, your email on this either you.
So are you recording this just so you have a record for what you're going to write on?
I'm doing. I'm fairly sure that within 5 years, 75 to 80% of all magazine type journalism, business to business, will be video because are forcing themselves to illiteracy. I guess that's some part of neoliberalism itself.
Right.
Um, I transcribe when I'm doing a full feature. What I'm doing, I'm writing a book right now about indie films that are doomed to fail, which is
Okay.
all of them. The whole system is doomed to fail.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the
Well,
Scots,
hasn't it always been that way in a way?
not at the scale it is now, and the expertise of the people who know how to fail and look like everything's business as usual. Um, the quality of the films is very, very strong. Uh,
Hmm.
I've been doing this stuff since the early 90s. It's not that, it's just there is really 10 times as much, I hate the word content.
Right.
So the book I'm writing is called Under the Radar, uh, 500 good indie films that you probably will never see. You'll probably
I
never
love it. I
see.
love it. I When I was in film school, I was a student of Ray Carney, who wrote a lot of books about Cassavetes. So I was very steeped in the underground indie film world, coming out of school.
Cassavetes is like one of the five horsemen. Him and
Yeah,
Samuel Fuller and uh,
that's right.
Godard and Truffaut
Yeah.
and um, some big critics too. I mean, Bogdanovich didn't come along that late to that, you
Mm,
know. It's a shame that happened to him, you know. He could have done so much more.
that's true.
Um, it's interesting. I mean, this thing is very deep. Uh, have you shown it to anybody who like does TED things?
Like TED Talk?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know that George has done some TED Talk stuff. We say that in the beginning, kind of. We have a little intro page for him just to introduce him at the beginning of the film. So, uh, but as far as, directly communicating with the TED Talk enterprise, we have not, from my understanding.
Well, you will after it settles into what kind of arrangement you have to the people who are taking your film out, I think, you know.
Yeah, every film kind of has its own path as far as where it ends up and how far it gets pushed. And like you said, there's just it's hard to get eyeballs on anything.
I was lucky once. I was totally like green, and I managed to ask a question to John Sayles on the
Yeah.
steps of the Angelica. And I
Okay.
didn't know how much I should pay for the rights to this little short story I wanted to make it as my first little film. And he just said, every deal has its own elegance. It's just so deep, it took me years to figure it out.
Yeah. Wow, that's a cool moment to have.
Yeah, yeah. So by the way, we've looked at all the crazy conspiracy people, for years, and it has so many of the trappings that are in conspiracies. But I think that the conspiracies take whatever they want and pull it out. Not they don't want to do the whole box of stuff. They just want to
That's
pull
right.
things that work to their bidding, like the
That's right.
Illuminati.
That's right. And George has actually written articles about that very thing, that it's like there's a lot of conspiracy theories that just cherry pick data or cherry pick one idea, but to really address the big conspiracy, if you want to call it that, which we call the invisible doctrine in the film, you know, that that's a much different, as you described it, intellectual exercise, because there's a real history there that happened, and there's data, and there's a record of it, and we're living in the consequences of it.
I discovered this year by chance that into certain numbers like 13 and 17, just because they've always naturally come my way. Used to do batting averages in my head. I was still able to do earn run averages, but by then I didn't care about that shit anymore. But you know that I just found this out like 4 months ago. The Freemason Society, formally formed in 1717.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you know more about the numerology stuff than I do.
Well, it's all by just chance,
Yeah,
whatever. And people I've talked to over the years. I mean, what's his name? That what QAnon, that's their number, 17.
yeah.
So I deliberately use the number 1717 for all kinds of things,
Hmm.
just to kind of irk them, so to speak, like it
I
made a
see.
right
Okay.
difference,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But once I was really felt that what we needed was humanism. So I
yeah.
researched that. And it turns out that there's this small sect of religion somewhere, I think it was in the Midwest or something, that trademark, service mark, copyright, and completely owns the term humanism. And it's a sect of maybe 30,000 people at most. And they can't have something be the humanist party because they own it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird to me.
Yeah, that is weird. Um,
So
well, I hope we make
really
your list of
resonated is
I
film.
hope we make your list of 500 films.
Oh, you will. You're already there for sure. This is a very and I definitely, once you have your distributor who properly will, take this around. I mean, I think that you need to like look at all the other things that address certain ends of it, and
Mhm.
do a double feature wherever the hell you run for the next 5 years.
Hmm.
Okay, that way you're always fresh.
Yeah.
They're talking environment or they're talking, you know,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's a very like broad brushstroke of kind of a film, right? Like our last film we made, Peter and I, called Devil Put the Coal in the Ground, which was really about West Virginia, is much more a pinpointed look at, one part of the country, one area really of West Virginia, and this is much more of a, bigger look at the whole picture.
well, the Beverly Hillbillies would not have been able to afford to get to Beverly Hills. It was coal they hit when they accidentally hit the wrong spot on their land.
Hmm.
Had oil, right?
Yeah,
Texas tea. So. That I mean, I think that this is the kind of documentary I think that you have to go contrary into the market because it's something that is, even more timeless than timeless, and it's still an intro to any number of things.
yeah, you're right. And we're also doing exactly what you're saying. We're looking at all of our options as far as what the best way to get this film out to as many people as possible. We've looked at just doing an AVOD YouTube release, in a couple months maybe. Right now it's available on major streaming platforms, except we ran into an issue with Amazon that they're not streaming it. As you
Uh,
can maybe tell, the
that
content is
SVOD, the paid streaming.
right. This is for rental, right? So we're on Apple, we're on YouTube rental, we're on Google Play, but our last films have all been available on Amazon, but as our distributor told us that, only one or two films in their catalog has this ever happened to where Amazon refuses to.
Bezos does not come across well in the film.
Yeah, I assume that that's why this happened.
Very likely, but fuck them.
Well, yeah, I guess it's good advertising for our film in some way.
You know, I just think that you should be bundled with building that intellectual community that understands that somehow neoliberalism isn't anything like what we would think it sounds like, and that Reagan was an extreme example of it, you
That's
know?
right. That's a
Uh,
confusing term, and that was our interest in making the film in the first place. Was that Peter and I had been bouncing around this idea for years, and because the term, as you just described, has words in it that seem to mean quite the opposite of what actually, is the reality of the philosophy. So, and we heard the term being thrown around a lot in political writing, and we decided, we wanted to make a film that unpacks that and makes a 75-minute documentary where someone is like, what is neoliberalism exactly? And then we can be like, well, here you go, watch this movie or read the book, right? Because the book, usually a movie grows out of a book, but the opposite happened with this. The book grew out of the movie. So we had read a Guardian article that George had written in
cool.
20, yeah,
I,
in 2016 about neoliberalism, and Peter and I had passed that article back and forth a couple times, and then we realized, this is really our guy. So we contacted George, and he agreed to do the film, and and we started basically with that article, and then we built it out from there. And when Peter and George pitched the book to ultimately Penguin Random House is our publisher, they said, well, this is great, but we really need it to be a lot longer. So, if you listen to the audiobook or read the book, it's about 4.5 hours. Our film's 75 minutes. So there's, more information in the book, and some of the ideas are really expanded upon there.
yeah, I guess you wouldn't want to show the film over at the Chicago Graduate School for Economics.
Yeah, yeah. I was just
Robert Reich stuff recently?
well, it's funny. There's well, he Robert Reich was right. There was an op-ed in the New York Times a few weeks ago by David Brooks that basically discounts that neoliberalism even really happened. And several people wrote responses to that, including Robert Reich,
Yeah, I got this article. He said the tragic history of neoliberalism. And it's like published like May 30th. You
huh.
seen
Who wrote that? Robert Reich
Robert
wrote that.
Reich?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. I think that was in response to the David Brooks
He
thing,
wrote
which is
another one
public.
before that in April or something.
Yeah.
There's an earlier one and
No,
then
he's
a second
great.
one.
He's
Right.
he's great, and he's what I like about him is that he's just been on the same topic for so long, and I think what happens in to many politicians and writers is that we get distracted so easily about the central issue. I mean, I personally was really excited by Bernie Sanders because he precisely always stayed on message. He was unflappable, and we don't live in a world where there's a lot of people that are like that.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, for whatever you value that, I would say from what I'm reading from Reich that he has like true cojones
Yeah. Well, and he was also, part of a real administration, right?
that everybody said was asleep. Oh, which one? That was Barack, right?
No, I think he was Clinton's labor secretary.
Was all the way back to Clinton.
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, they surely show that Bill's a nice transition into Ronnie afterwards, and the smile, and it's just almost
Oh, right.
the other
Yes.
side of the card. Although
Yeah.
the tricky
Yeah.
one. There's a lot of people who go one way and others, and you know,
Well, and I think that we've in the opportunities where we've had some question and answer sessions after some screenings, I think that's a really hard bubble for people to burst is that, in the Republican side of the aisle, starting in 2015, 2016, when they were having their primary debates, and there was that bloodbath debate where Trump, pretty much severed ties with what the Republican Party had been before that. That was the debate in South Carolina where he, questioned George Bush's handling of 9/11 and was really attacking a lot of sacred cows on the Republican side. And the Democrats haven't really been able to do that. That we haven't really faced up to that, and how Obama and Clinton, to a larger extent, were complicit in the neoliberal enterprise.
because it's hidden. So
That's right. It takes some digging, and it takes some connecting, and it takes some staying on message. Just as a human being, to face that day in and day out is no small task. Because the reality is we live in that world, and we all have to try to function in that world, and we're all pulled by large corporate interests in how we function, and you know we do the best we can in many cases. So
isn't it more like the mob where you have to like technically kill somebody in order to go to the next level or something like that? I don't know what the task may be.
I don't know.
It would seem that's the case. So if you look at it from one end, I personally think that I'm opposing neoliberalism by smoking this joint that I bought on the
I was wondering what that was.
well, I just lit it, but I think I'm on camera on the recording at this point,
Okay.
and I thought it was appropriate at this point to do that because, in a way, they destroy the actual really good marijuana business. This stuff, it always gives a kick, but it's never like the old amazing stuff that would come in from all kinds of exotic spots. What they do is they get something that looks like decent pot. They never test it, and then they put Delta 9 into it, so they know it's going to have a kick and nobody's going to pull a gun on them because they didn't get their $10 value for the last joint they bought.
Well, I
So
think
they
you know a
destroyed the
little bit more about
marijuana.
that than I do. So,
Well, you might know about the numbers business. It used to be what financed the entire neighborhood of Harlem, the numbers. Guess what? They made it illegal and the government went into the business.
right, right. I see your point there. Yeah,
So I made it all consistent with that. You know,
yeah,
I haven't been radical in years. It's just these are actually facts that you don't have to be radical
yeah,
to say, but you'd have to be sometimes radical to have found them out
yeah.
because that seems to be just as radical as speaking out is actually going and looking it up just to even consider it. And
Right.
you find some surprising
Well,
things
you
when you
know,
look things up.
it's funny that you brought up at the beginning whether we had contacted the TED Talk people, and I think one of the ways we really wanted to move out of the space of that was with our composer Landon Knobloch, who has done the score for our last few films. And while in some sense, it's a buried element in the film, I think it really makes the film feel cinematic, especially when you see it on the big screen with the good sound system. It really adds so much propulsion to the film. And I like to feel like the way we've constructed it is you kind of take the first step, and it's like a conveyor belt. By the time you get to the end of the film, you're like, oh my God, it's over already. It sucks you in
Well,
the
I
in the
love the look. I love the animated art that, you can't tell whether it's animation or art or,
yeah,
a background
yeah,
somehow, but it all has that kind of, gothic or retro feel. a retro modern feel, and then
Hmm.
just total techno modern when you wanted to go that way. But
Yeah.
the same kind of like palette of colors, and it's very, very nice look. Way
Thank
too
you.
expensive for something like this. You'll never get your money back. Except when
Well,
they
that's
do
a
it for
given.
free.
That's a given.
Well, on the other hand, the whole idea of the collective building that is, if you talk to any Native American worth their salt, even ones that are only one quarter, they say, well, isn't that obvious?
Mm, right.
I mean, it's all at the core of all that.
Of course.
They
Yeah.
had their
Big-
genocide too. I mean, being Jewish, I know about our genocide and our pogroms and all that. Their
mm,
genocide lasted about 150 years.
right.
And in that
Yeah.
time, they killed 40 million of them.
Yeah.
They
And
didn't count the ones in South America.
that's a huge part of the story of you know, our nation having to look itself in the mirror and look at the true history of the way things have played out in this country. And as we see on a daily basis, there's a huge propaganda machine that fights that, and that's why, as you said, journalism is really moving towards more and more video. And I'm hoping that that at least allows for more voices to be heard, and that
Well,
there
they
is.
should talk about having a transcript that should be clearly, established. If we're going to use that as a substitute, that there is
Hmm,
a transcript, it is accurate, and they have to
yeah,
have methods of proving it's accurate. And so I think that can make a big difference. I mean, there's no reason for journalism to commit suicide. The paywall is ridiculous.
yeah, yeah,
After three sentences, I have to click something just to find out.
yeah.
This is totally, I mean, I'm just watching people commit suicide. I mean, I have this therapy that I do for the world now. And that I wrote this crazy parody in 2016 called Donald and the Devil. And
Hmm,
it was funny. I mean, I thought I gave him good lines too, as
hmm,
well. It was
yeah.
the two of them. And it was, related to the election. But I was so far below the radar, but I've been compiling, assets for it. So every time he does something horrible, rotten, stupid, silly, kind of interesting, or a good photo op, because I take thousands of pictures of this guy. Um, I don't worry anymore. I'm
Yeah.
writing Donald and the Devil Part Two when I know that when I put it out, someone's not going to shoot me.
Yeah. Right.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And or there's someone that at least shoot back behind me.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't bother me a bit. And I think, I know there's another funny line. You should read this. I will let you send
Yeah.
it. You have to look it up. It's really pretty funny.
Hey,
Um,
Scott, I only have about 5 more minutes. Do you have any other
Yeah,
questions for
I think that
me?
we should definitely take this into being a full feature, and this is a good start. We'll transcribe it and we'll put up the video and cut it. I think I'm going to put the whole thing up at once, just so anybody that you know can see it and go all the way through it.
Okay.
Not to have to edit. It's just people's time frames. They don't want 7 minutes, 3 minutes, 11 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
Uh, and but we didn't say anything that wasn't reasonably righteous or intelligent, I think. So I'll go
I
with
hope so.
this is something that is really deep, and I think that it should be a tool to help overcome um, the character in Donald and the Devil Part Two.
All
Okay,
right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I have 13,000 references. Um, anyway, since
Well, I'm glad someone's cataloging it all.
So we'll figure it out. So look,
Yeah.
here's the thing. We will send you certain questions, but we'll put the feature, I think, on Indie Entertainment Media also,
Okay.
LA, and besides the video channel. And then we'll figure out how to work from the transcript. There's very deep stuff here. I'm really glad to have made your acquaintance.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, Scott, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
I think if you can take something like this, which is knowledge and which is entertaining and brings insights to people, is something that needs to be done. And if you shouldn't just call it, this film is going out for the, you're sending a message, and therefore it should have light for as long as that message is really light, which I think is so much deeper than what most people talk about. That
Yeah.
can really
Well,
steer the conversation.
I
And
hope it provides a new lens on the political discussion of the moment.
yeah, yeah. Get Robert Reich somehow to do his photo opportunity or want
Yeah.
something big.
No, I would love for him to see the film and to have it share his thoughts.
I'll
So
let him know that you can send him something
yeah. Do you have a connection with him?
through LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would appreciate any efforts in letting him know that the film exists, and that would be great.
Beautiful piece of work.
Thank you.
And congratulate your partner as well, Peter.
I will. I will. And hope you have a good rest of your day, Scott.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, now I got to kill the meeting. Let's see how we do that.
All right.
This is fun when we do this. First we hit end, but it really hasn't ended. Then we have to end meeting for